You're listening to Sustainably Geeky, the podcast for everyday environmentalists.
Hi, and welcome to Sustainably Geeky, episode 14. My name's Jennifer, and I am joined today by two special guests. We have Cory Skuldt and Carole LeClair with Austin Creative Reuse. Cory is the interim executive director since 2018, and Carole LeClair is the board president, and from what I understand, has been with the organization pretty much since it started. So I want to let you guys talk a little bit about yourselves before we jump into our topic, and tell us, who you are, what you do, and what Austin Creative Reuse is.
Okay, I guess I'll start. Yeah, I have kind of been there, not quite from the beginning, but I got here as fast as I could. So I'm not technically a founding member, but been on the board, helped open our store, our center, which opened in September of 2015. Worked on a lot of fundraising efforts to make that happen, and have been a very active member of the community since then.
Awesome. And Cory.
I joined the organization as interim executive director just last year, helping to transition the organization through a period of growth and expansion. But I first got involved before the center opened as a volunteer as well, helped with organizing the first little pop-up center retail shop at a fundraiser. And then a few years later, joined the board as the sustainability chair. So been off and on involved with the organization for quite a long time.
Awesome. So for those listening that aren't familiar with this concept, what is a creative reuse store, and what is Austin Creative Reuse specifically, if it's different from your typical store like this?
I'll let you take that one, Cory.
Creative Reuse Center is a sort of hybrid of a social enterprise nonprofit. So we operate a retail store for reused materials, everything you can possibly think of that could be reused in a creative context. And we also host a variety of community events, craft meetups, group volunteering, kids workshops and adults workshops in our center and out in the community. So our mission is around conservation through reuse, and we do that both through the materials management side and through the educating, inspiring, and bringing community together around reuse. Awesome.
So when I explain to people, friends and people in the community, what you guys are, I kind of tell them it's like a thrift shop for things you can't give to a regular thrift shop, but still have use. Arts and crafts products, stationery, which is my personal favorite because I go crazy in that section. Scraps, yarn, cloth scraps, yarn, anything you can think of. You guys even have regular household goods depending on what people bring in. So I was super excited, as a consumer to find you guys. I think I may have mentioned this in a previous conversation, but I actually found a different creative reuse store in Eugene, Oregon before I realized we had one in Austin. And I thought, wow, we could really use one of these where I live. And then I realized we have one already. So I love the concept. I love what you guys do to educate the community and to divert things from the landfill. I think it's just super cool, and it's about time that we have more of these stores. But kind of what is the genesis of this concept, and are you guys one of the first, or did you model yourselves after other stores or centers?
Well, we are definitely not the first in the U.S. In fact, not the first in the world. But in the U.S., the scrap exchange in the Raleigh-Durham area has been going on for 30 plus years. Wow. And they are a huge driver in that area for, they initially started as really a place to divert business waste. So they were taking the very few donations from individuals, mostly from because they have a lot of manufacturing there. So it was a lot of fabric waste and wood waste and things like that. Things that were going into the landfill, but really had a creative upside to them. And so that's where they started, and they really expanded from there. Our founder, Rebecca Stutch, lived in the Raleigh-Durham area, was a frequent shopper, a huge supporter. And when she moved to Austin, she said, oh my God, we have got to have one of these here in Austin. We actually have taken a little bit different tact. Most of our donations do come from individuals, but we're out there constantly trying to talk to businesses about what are the things that they have that have creative potential that are currently going into landfill. Even just today, I was at the center, Cory was as well, and a man pulled up in a truck and he had a bunch of design samples from Four Hands furniture manufacturer who's here in Austin. It was a lot of wood samples, fabric samples, other design pieces that often, once they change their design, just get thrown in the landfill. But they're bringing them to us. Also, if you can think of your craft drawer, which doesn't look that great, but if you were to bring that to us, we have this team of amazing volunteers and staff members who will sort your paper clips and your little gems and your embroidery floss, and we'll get that all separated out and basically bring the value back into that material.
Yeah, I have to say I was super excited not just to be able to buy things from you guys, but to be able to give you the things that I was holding on to because I refused to throw it away. And I didn't want it to go to the landfill, but I also knew, like, I'm never going to use this. I intended, you buy things intending to do all these projects and then half of them don't happen. So I was very happy to find a home for them where, there would be people who are looking for the weird things that I'm getting rid of and vice versa. So that's interesting that the majority of your stuff comes from individuals, but do you have, like partnerships set up with certain businesses that give you things on a regular basis, or is it just kind of like a whenever they have excess?
It's some of both. So we do have some local businesses that very regularly have a certain material that that they have sort of scrapped out of their production process, or as Carole mentioned, sort of changing inventory, and we take those regularly. And then there's sometimes just out of the blue, a craft store shutting down and wanting to make sure that all the inventory that they built up, it goes somewhere that it's really valued. But I would say that we hear that experience that you have quite a bit of folks who are sort of treasuring these materials, whether they bought them themselves and not used them, or inherited them, or come across them in another way, and they know that there isn't another diversion stream. They wouldn't be quite the right fit for a thrift store, and they want to send them somewhere where they know they'll be really valued. And that's sort of the superpower that I see in our community of our volunteers and staff, that they can really recognize the value in all of those materials and sort of sort and curate and test them in a way that brings that value back. So they're potential waste materials, they were headed for landfill, they're donated to us for free, but it's a really massive amount of people power that goes into sort of bringing back the life to those and making them into an appealing retail center where people can be inspired by those materials.
Yeah, so I guess the moral is, if you're not sure, you can always ask, bring it and see, because rather than throw it in the trash, it's more than likely that someone could use whatever it is. Because some of the stuff I've seen there, I'm like, I wouldn't have thought someone could make something out of that. Like you had, I think, graduation tassels, stuff like that, CDs and, things that as you're cleaning out, you're like, man, this is a shame that you can't recycle it, but you can upcycle it.
Absolutely. Those graduation tassels actually came through a partnership with other reuse centers. We did a little staff and board field trip to other reuse centers in Central Texas, and one that we visited had an entire tractor trailer load of graduation tassels that had been donated to them. So we've sort of started a little mini exchange among our local centers to spread those materials around where they can be used. But yeah, there's absolutely, you can always call us and ask us, come in and ask us. And we also try to keep a pretty updated list on our website of materials that we're accepting or not accepting. So that, doesn't cover everything you could possibly think of, but it's pretty extensive. So you can get an idea of the types of things that we accept.
Awesome. And things that, even like food containers or things that would typically be considered recyclable, you may be able to use those in your store actually, rather than, sending them to the waste stream. Whether or not you can sell them, it may be of use for you guys just to organize. Is that right?
We can talk about like highest and best use of a material. So recycling is not your first choice, really. Don't take it in the first place would be your first choice. Second would be to find a way to reuse it, then potentially recycle it. And then your last choice is always landfill.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people we grew up with that reduce, reuse, recycle, but people don't realize that the order is very important. And we've actually heard, like you said, refuse should be first. Try not to use it. If you have to use it, then reduce your use of it, or repurpose it and then recycle it. Right. If you can't get through any of those. So that's a very good point. So going back to, I guess, how you guys started, and you said that you did a lot of fundraising initially. What was that process? I mean, how much did you have to raise? How long did that take? What was the, kind of timeline, I guess, for when you guys, or your founder, thought of it, and then you guys actually opened your doors?
So we're just about to hit our 10-year anniversary as a nonprofit. So we began as a nonprofit about 10 years ago. We did a lot of outreach. I mean, our founder, Rebecca, was really foresighted. She set up a lot of our, she wrote a beautiful mission statement, and we've really stuck to that mission statement. We are a conservation and reuse organization, and we've really tried to think of ourselves that way. But the fundraising is just, it's like any organization, just getting enough money to be able to sign a lease, because the way we fund our organization is primarily through center sales. And so we had to have a lease on a brick and mortar location. And that's really what the fundraising pushed us through. And so we had found a landlord who had enough faith in us to sign a long lease with us, a 3-year lease. We're now going on 4+ years with that same landlord. And looking for potentially a new larger space, but it really, in essence, it didn't take us that much to get launched. It was mostly just having people out there who knew who we were, a volunteer base, signing a lease, and moving into the location. And we could not believe people showed up the first day. We started out open 8 hours a week. We were open on Tuesday nights, or no, what was it? It was Saturdays and Tuesdays or Wednesdays. And we just, every time we add more hours, more people just come. So
that's great.
I think it's really a testament to the real need for this type of organization in Austin, and to the effectiveness of having that sort of long ramp up period. So it wasn't just, fundraising for an idea, but really sort of prototyping and testing out different experiences in the community, collecting materials and having little pop-up events, and doing crafts at community events. Really sort of seeing what people responded to, and also getting a really sort of dedicated fan base, so that when the center did open, it was busy and active from day one. There was already a large group of dedicated volunteers that were involved and invested in the organization, and a group of customers ready to come in and shop on the first day. And that's awesome. Sort of allowed us to maintain a pretty lean financial model. So, really, we definitely rely on having our staff people now to keep the center open the amount of hours that we are. But it would not be possible to be selling materials at the very low prices that we are if we were dependent on staff to do all of the labor involved. So it's really that combination of having staff there opening the center every day, but also volunteers putting a huge amount of time into both processing materials, curating the center, and doing all of the sort of community outreach and strategy and planning to keep growing the organization.
That's great. I mean, the fact that you guys were able to build that support and sustain it is pretty awesome, because I, as you know, have a lot of experience working for a nonprofit and volunteering, and I've seen the struggles that go along with getting people to commit and then actually getting them to show up and follow through. So this is something obviously that people believe in, and that the community as a whole has embraced, which I think is wonderful that you guys have been able to do that. Can you tell me a little bit more about these pop-ups that you did? Like, what did you do at them, and what kind of events did you hold them at?
Are there early events you have?
And do you still do them, I guess, now that you're open?
We don't do pop-ups, but early on we would have a big collection drive, put it in someone's front yard, and then broadcast to all educators in Austin, hey, we have a bunch of free materials, and they would come and they would just clean it up. And it was a lot of stuff from businesses, quite frankly, some stuff from individuals. Some of our businesses who still donate quite a bit to us had supplied us with a lot of these really valuable materials, like sticker material, like just rolls of paper and rolls of fabric. Designers have been wonderful, like interior decorators and designers, bringing us these different types of like interior decorating samples and things like that. So those are going to pop-ups, but we love getting out in the community. And so we probably 3 to 4 times a month, we are at a arts organization, like say like the Violet Maplewood, the Christmas show they have at Maplewood. I can't remember the exact name of it now.
Fair and the Violet Crown Festival.
Yeah. We're going to do something with Creative Action later this month. So we regularly interact with the community, and so many people find us that way just by going out there and telling them about us. They get so excited, just like you are so happy to find a place for your creative materials to go. So often that's how people first engage with us. They're like, oh my God, I have so much fabric that I'm never going to use. I'm so excited that I can bring it to you. And now they're a member of our community.
That's awesome. I think, in communities like mine that don't have one of these stores, it's important, to think of ways that maybe we can do something in lieu of starting a center if that's not possible at this point. And these pop-ups sound like it might be a great opportunity. If we had a group that wanted to do a drive to collect some of these materials and then go to an event, or like you said, just kind of, open up somebody's yard and tell people, come on out and and see what we've got. So for the folks listening, it seems like that might be an interesting way to, to kind of dip your toe in it, or at least try to divert some items from the landfill.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say another important part of the events that we do in the community is having folks sort of teach a hands-on craft or activity to really show people in a hands-on way how they can use those materials and inspire them. Some folks will just sort of see the materials and know exactly what they want to do, and some people that's overwhelming, and we can introduce a little project or craft, something that they're going to be excited to take home, and that's going to keep those materials moving, but it's also going to be a physical reminder in that person's life that, oh, this is the little business card holder that I made at an event with Awesome Creative Reuse, or this is the Spin Art record wall piece that I made. And it's sort of a constant reminder of the breadth of things that we can reuse and the ways that we can do that throughout our everyday lives.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're not just selling the stuff, you're showing them how to use it, and you're kind of training them to think as they go through their daily lives, before they throw it away, what could that be used for? Hey, I could make, something out of this, or someone else could potentially. So that is pretty awesome. Do you guys have people that kind of specialize in certain materials or certain objects that you have as your teachers, or do you kind of just train people as they come in to do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I would say the vast majority come from, volunteers or staff that have an idea about a particular project they'd like to to work on. So we have right now a monthly craft night at Easy Tiger in the same shopping center with us. And each month it rotates to a different staff person who comes up with their own project and gathers the materials in the center for it. And then over the years, volunteers have also built up sort of idea libraries, and we keep records of those things in our shared drive so that people can kind of look through and get inspired. And something we'd really like to do more of when we have a little bit more space is to have more of those examples in the center, so people can kind of look at a shelf of materials and then see an example of something that was made with that, maybe be able to pick up instruction sheets or look online at a tutorial video for how to use it. Something we've dipped our toes in, but definitely hope to do more of.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I see that you do like monthly contests with certain items. This is the item of the month, and who can make the neatest thing out of it, right? Is that still?
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely source ideas from the broader community and try to sort of give people little challenges. If this is the material we're having trouble figuring out what to do with and the quantity that we get it, and we see some really amazing ideas come in that way.
Yeah, that seems like a very effective way to get people excited about it too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can win a little prize. We get with your winning idea, and then we also can continually share those on social media. We have a lot of interaction with our Instagram and Facebook of people sort of showing customers coming back the next week after buying something and showing us what they've made with it, and then we put that out to the community as well.
Awesome. So let's go back to, I guess, how you guys kind of started the store. Did you look at other stores? I know you said there's one in Raleigh-Durham. Did you actually visit other places and get ideas, or did you guys kind of come up with the concept, for your location on your own?
I think it's kind of interesting. The genesis of the idea did come from Rebecca's relationship with the Raleigh-Durham Scrap Exchange, but you do kind of just learn things as you put together these centers, ways to better sort items. We have a big thing about we don't want to touch an item more than 1 or 2 times. So how do we get our micro sorting and our bringing the value back into that item as fast as possible? Like I said, Cory had mentioned, we have this army of volunteers who are so happy to come in and put puff balls into little baggies. We get the little baggies from a store that is it's a big jewelry designer, and she gets a lot of little plastic baggies and she gives them to us, thank God. And we're happy to put little things into plastic baggies. But we have had this, in this last 6 to 8 months, we have really tried to reach out to a lot of reuse centers and get the best of their ideas. And we have found that we often are very, very much like other reuse centers. In some ways we are not. And it's been really fun to find out how they are approaching reuse and how can we incorporate the best of their ideas into our center. Because not every center has the same mission that we do. There are some that are very much focused on teachers and education. There are some that are really clearly focused on artists. There are some that are really focused on keeping business waste out of the landfill. And some are nonprofit, some are run by school districts, some are funded by city grants. There's so many different models out there. Ours, we feel very comfortable with ours. Ours is really driven by retail sales. We do get city grants, but it's not something that we're dependent on for our future.
And you mentioned that there were a few others in this region. So what is that in Austin, or is that kind of in just the greater Central Texas area?
Recently visited the Wellman Project in Fort Worth, which is one of the centers that's solely focused on educators. So they have a warehouse where they're collecting, sorting materials, and then they open it up to all educators in their area to come and get materials for free. So they're primarily grant funded. And then we also visited Scrap Denton, which is another model pretty similar to ours, in that they do sort of that broader range of a retail center and some workshops in the center and some work in the community. And they're a bit smaller than us, but a similar model. And then, whenever our staff and board members and volunteers travel, we all have this sort of honing in on where's the local reuse center that we can check out. So we just had a board member come back from visiting a center in Boulder, and one in Edmonton. I was recently in the Boston area and visited the Beautiful Stuff Project, which is another sort of similar model. Another staff member visited Materials for the Arts in New York recently, which is part of their solid waste department, and works to get materials into the hands of nonprofits and artists and educators.
How cool. Yeah, I have to say now when I travel, that's one of the things I look for. I'm like, okay, is there a reuse center in addition to like the typical things you look for, like food and activities? Because that's a unique aspect of a community, I think. And every store is going to be different, and every, like you said, everything you find, it's like treasure hunting. You never know what you're going to get if you're going to walk away with nothing or a bag full.
It's a really fun way to kind of get a little deeper window into a local community and meet people who are excited to share about their experience with reuse.
Yeah, it's definitely a really neat and different way to get to know the community, like you said, and also kind of think creatively, because it does get your juices flowing when you're looking at something thinking, I could do something with that. I don't know what, but
yeah. And I think awesome. It's really growing. We've seen more and more pop up in the last few years. I think there's just sort of a snowballing effect, and the momentum is really taking off. And in a way, it's sort of normalizing reuse. As the model spreads, it's proving that reuse centers are a great way to invite people into these conservation practices. They might not have thought they were an environmentalist, someone who was really interested in upcycling, but once they come into, retail center is a very accessible, inviting environment. It's something that people are used to going in and shopping in a craft store, so it's not that different. And then once they come in and get involved, then there's all kinds of ways for them to engage more deeply. But that retail platform, we find, is a great way to get people in the door and get them involved. And I think that's being proven to work in so many different communities, and each one is sort of tailored to its local community, but it's engaging with people in a broader way.
Yeah, and the good thing, I think the thing that makes it the most effective is that you're saving them money. So you're tricking them into being environmentalist, even if that's not what they're thinking of. They're saving money, therefore, I'm going to go back, even if that's the farthest thing from their mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that we can hope to make the sort of massive behavior change that we desperately need in terms of environmental crisis by making people feel bad or doing things just because it's the right thing to do. But if we have a model that is saving people money, it's exciting and fun. It's a place where people can connect socially and do something that's like really enjoyable. So there's so many reasons to get involved, and then you get to, on top of that, feel great about your environmental impact.
Yeah. See, all the things that we're doing, not just the reuse stuff, but everything environmental really makes more sense economically, which I think is a better argument for some people than this is the right thing to do. There's always going to be those folks that are doing it for the right reasons, but we also are lucky that the economics is on our side.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And that makes it truly accessible to all. We want to, part of our pricing philosophy is that we don't give away materials for free. We want to recognize that these materials really have value, but at the same time, we never want price to be an object to, an obstacle to someone expressing themselves creatively or reusing materials. So we make sure that, our prices start at 1 cent for some items and go from there. But there's always a priority on making sure that that price is never going to stop someone from coming in and being.
Yeah, that's great. So, and you mentioned, all these different stores throughout the country. And what I think is great is that you all are willing to help each other and kind of learn from each other. And there's not really competition. You're all doing this for, good reasons, for the same reasons pretty much, to divert things and to help your local communities. So I love that there's that, open, supportive relationship between all these organizations.
It's a really collaborative community. I feel like I can call up the Reuse Center anywhere in the country and people are going to be happy to chat with me about what they're working on. And it's also, we get asked occasionally if if another reuse center opens, I'm not going to compete with you. We really see the more the merrier. We don't look at Austin and say there's already a Target, so we don't need any other retail stores. Our goal would be to replace every new retail store with a reuse version. So there's a lot of room for people to come in and kind of put their own stamp on the model and to the plethora of reuse models.
Yeah, because really all you're doing is increasing the amount of stuff you're diverting. When you have a model, you have a store in North Austin, South Austin, Central. I mean, that's just more opportunities for people to actually bring stuff to you and you guys resell it. So
we want it to be accessible and convenient for everyone to reuse. And we do try to be mindful of not overlapping with other organizations that are already providing service. So if something is, an item that sells well in thrift stores, it's something we won't focus on because there's already a good option for that. We want to make sure we're serving a need that isn't being met elsewhere. So we do, stay mindful of really defining our boundaries as a unique center. But I think there's so much room for all different types of reuse to increase in Austin and everywhere else.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that the store couldn't run without the massive volunteer army you have. How many volunteers and hours does it take to keep a store running? Basically you guys are open, 7 days a week, full time, I'd say, from
so our
9 or 10.
A couple of days that our retail center isn't open, but we still have volunteer activities going on. So someone's there doing something every day of the week. In the last year, we had over 6,000 volunteer hours put into the center. And that comes in the form of we have a core volunteers who really are trained on every aspect of running the center and can kind of drop in and work on whatever their specialty is at any time. And then we have several open volunteering times that people can just drop in without any previous experience or training. And we have people who come regularly to those, people who just drop in once. And we also do group volunteering for other nonprofit groups, for employee groups. We find it's a really fun team building activity for people to come out and do some micro sorting together and tour the center and learn about what we're doing. And they really make a valuable contribution to our materials process as well.
How old do you have to be to volunteer? Do you take kids, like scout troops, or is it just 18 and up?
We have worked with youth groups, and we just make sure that we have someone who's available to work with them. So we schedule them in advance, but we have a long-standing relationship with Generation Serve that does work with young volunteers, and we've had people of all ages in the center.
Great. So if you're in the Austin area and you're looking to get some volunteer hours or get involved or even just learn something new, this sounds like a great option. And obviously, if you have a group, then get in touch with them so you can, kind of get connected with that as well. Or if you have ideas, I would say probably for, workshops or items that you can make into things. It sounds like y'all are always open to those as well.
We have an artist-run workshop series where each month we bring in a different artist who uses a reused material in their work, and they share a technique with the folks who sign up for that workshop, and it's a way that we can help promote their work as well. So there's a form for that on our website if you want to sign up to teach a workshop.
Cool.
And there's contact info to find out when our open volunteering hours are and to schedule group volunteering.
Do you guys charge for these classes? You've mentioned several different workshops you do.
Yeah, so we have a variety of models. So we have the artist workshop and a kids workshop once a month that are a ticket price. And then we also have a monthly craft night that folks can come in for free anytime, and we do craft activities out in the community for free as well.
Awesome. So what does the future hold for ACR? Do you mentioned maybe some expansion. It is a pretty tight space if you go in there, but you guys have maximized every inch of it, and you have shelves and things hanging on the walls. So what does the future look like, though?
Carole, do you want to answer this one?
We're currently in negotiations on a much larger space. We think it's a space that we can eventually grow into. The real estate market is very tough here in Austin. The space we have now, we pay full market retail price for it. We don't get any special break from our landlord. We are definitely looking for a much larger space. And part of that is because we really feel committed to expanding our community. It is great that you can bring stuff to us and drop stuff off for donations, and that you can come shop with us. But the thing is, we really want to bring people together. Part of our mission statement is about community building, and we're super committed to having places that people who are interested in reuse can come together, either for just meetups, special interest groups, to take a class, to bring their children so their children can embrace reuse. So we have a lot of plans. We're just still waiting to make those plans a reality.
Awesome. Can't wait to see what you guys do. And yeah, the bigger the space, I guess the more stuff you can collect and the more classes you can offer and activities for groups. So
I would encourage folks to sign up for our newsletters on our website and follow us on social media, especially on Facebook and Instagram. We're itching to make an announcement about a very big move, and the minute we do, we'll be putting it out on all of those channels.
That's great. What is your website and social media, just so everyone knows?
So it's just austincreativereuse.org is our website. And we're Austin Creative Reuse on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest as well.
Awesome. So I have to ask this because I'm sure a lot of folks are thinking this, but what is the strangest or most unique thing that's come into the store or that you've heard about? You're like, what is that, or what am I supposed to do with that?
Well, I solicited answers to this question, and here are a few of the most unique items I heard about. Human molars, gold filled. Pine quills was mentioned more than once. That's been a repeat donation.
Pine quill, you said?
Porcupine quills.
Oh, okay.
A unique instrument, 35-stringed instrument from Sweden that no one had ever heard of before. A 4-foot-long dried gourd, which was actually immediately snapped up by one of our staff people. And then we one time had someone leave a live goldfish in a tank in our parking lot, which we do not encourage. That is not something we accept. But we set it near the register, and someone came in and adopted it that day. We'll do everything in our power to make sure that everything finds a new home.
I'm surprised a bird didn't snap that up if it was left out all night.
We do also get, I actually am a bit of a sewing machine aficionado. It's definitely my wheelhouse. And we get some lovely vintage machines donated that are in absolute spectacular condition. And it's a thing that I love. I love testing an old machine and watching it work like a charm. I just tested one from the 60s today, and a white sewing machine that just works beautifully. Needs to be oiled and cleaned. Came in a beautiful table. I mean, it's like, wow, that is a fantastic donation, and something that someone will have literally for the rest of their lives.
That was my next question is, do they work normally, or do people just kind of drop off
We get them in all states. We get them where they are out for $5 because we can't figure out how to fix them. And we put out a couple of really beautiful singers today that are antique treadle models, but they don't have all their parts, so I can't test them. So they went out for a fairly low price. So, it just depends.
I think that's been sort of an unexpected category that once we started soliciting donations of sort of craft and creative and art materials, then a lot of the sort of equipment and tools tends to come along with that. So we have a beautiful yarn section. That's one of my favorite places to shop because, really nice wool yarn can be very pricey, but we get, people's aspirational knitting projects that they realized they weren't going to complete, and we get to give their beautiful yarn a new home. And then, of course, when people sort of move on from a activity, then all of the needles or whatever tools and equipment they have acquired to use with those materials can come along with those donations. So it really can be a kind of one-stop shop for all the creative activities.
I think a few years ago we had, it may have been just last year, we had a fellow who would come in with just like a box truck full of really nice art materials. He was driving from Kansas to bring us materials because he didn't know where else to bring them. His mother had passed away. He had all these materials for her. He did not want them to go in the landfill. He may have had an Austin connection and that's why he knew about us, but it was like, oh, you again with another box truck full of gorgeous things. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's so neat. Yeah, and it's interesting the attachment we have to these things. And like similar to him, I had a lot of yarn that I had inherited from my grandmother that I didn't ever. I realized I would never get through, so I gave it to someone whose mom, did that kind of stuff, and she actually quilted me a scarf out of it, which was super touching. But I was so glad to give it to someone that I knew would use it and not just see it go to the thrift shop and who knows what would happen to it. So it is really neat that we get so attached to material objects, but that we can also make such a difference in other people's lives by kind of sharing them with them, in this way. So
absolutely.
Let me see. I'm still plugged in. Okay, so I think that's most of the questions I had. Real quick, do you guys have anything else you want to go over that maybe we didn't touch on, or just talk about ways that people can get involved one last time?
Yeah, I would say the best way to get involved, just come into our center anytime we're open so that you can see for yourself what we're talking about, and sign up for classes, workshops on our website. Follow us on social media for inspiration and ideas, and to find out what's new in the center. We do a weekly post of all the sort of really exciting new things that come in, and the next morning we usually have a line out the door of folks who are ready to claim those items. And sign up with us to volunteer or drop in on one of our drop-in volunteer times. I think that it tends to be a really great experience, and also a great way to sort of connect with others who maybe share an interest or a passion for this work. Carole, would you add any
well, since I'm the board president, I have to say you could always, we are always looking for new board members. If you have a particular skill in business, social media, in accounting, if you have a retail experience, particularly if you have if you have experience giving classes, or setting up programming, if you're an educator, we are always looking to expand our education program because we feel like we have such a big impact there. So we are always looking for new board members, new committee members. So.
And what is the, I guess, time and, what is the commitment involved with being a board member for an organization like this?
So we have a monthly board meeting. It's usually second Monday of the month, in the evenings from 6 to 8. It's near our center. So the board meeting is generally in central Austin-ish, north central Austin. We generally expect board members to head up a committee. So say you have a lot of experience with an educator, or if you are an educator, then we might have you also do some work with our educator committee. So generally, it's not a huge time commitment for board members, like during the day, because we understand literally all of them have full-time jobs. So it's something that they can do at least once a week, do something to help us through with their talent, basically.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, since I know a lot of folks may think I can't volunteer during the day, or I have a family and I'm very limited in what time I can give you throughout the month. But serving on a board is very important. And many nonprofits are always looking for, eager, qualified folks. And I think a lot of people think they have to have all this years of experience, or they have to be a professional, and really they just need to have a desire to make a difference and a little bit of knowledge, or willingness to learn in most cases, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's such a wide variety of skills that can help us out, that people may not even realize that those things are valued. So it's always worth checking in, and we can always find a way to plug you in. And I would say also there's a big range. So we have board members who just can only do a few hours per month right now. And then we have other board members who are at the center all the time, really keeping us going in really big ways. Carole's an example of that, the latter group, who we could not survive without. But there's definitely ways to get plugged in if you can only start with a little bit of time. And there's also a lot of things that people can do from home. So one of the really valuable things that different board members bring is connections to other communities that we're not a part of yet. So we have a really great, diverse community, but we know there's a lot of people that we're not reaching with, or that we don't have relationships with. So even just being a person who can come in and say, I can do some outreach in this community that I'm a part of, that isn't connected with reuse or with the center. That's really valuable. There's things that can be done, we say, 5-minute volunteering, sharing our social media stories, and sending an email to invite someone to a workshop you think they'd be interested in. So there's a really wide range of ways that people can help out.
That's awesome. Yeah, and if you're not in the Austin community, of course, get involved in your local reuse center. If you don't have one, maybe consider starting one, or doing some of these pop-ups that we've talked about. I know I've spoke with you offline about, I'd love to see one of these where I live, which is about an hour north of Austin. And for folks that are maybe thinking of starting a store or center, what advice would you give, or what would you tell them as kind of first steps based on both of your experience?
I mean, I would say there's sort of two answers to that. One is to go, visit and learn or read online about all of the different models that are out there and get inspired about all the different ways that it can be done. But also, I would encourage people to just jump in and get started, even if it's just in a small way. And by sort of starting some small part of it, whether it's just like hosting a local reuse craft meetup at your local coffee shop, or doing a material drive and getting materials into schools, or whatever it may be, that just by starting it, you build momentum and you inspire other people to get involved. And you may find, the process of opening a reuse center like ours seems daunting or overwhelming or more work than you can take on. But once you get started with one small piece of it, then it will draw in all the other people who have something to contribute to it. Carole, what else would you add from the starting and momentum building of ACR?
Oh, it's hard to think. It was so much. It was work, but I tell you, once we got there, I was so I cannot tell you my happiness on the first day we were open. It was so delightful. People showed up, and people bought things, and people thanked us for being there. It was very, very rewarding.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you guys, have been able to share this information, your knowledge and your experience with all this. And I think you guys are doing amazing work. I can't wait to see where ACR goes from here. And we really appreciate you guys giving us your time and being on the show tonight. So is there anything else you guys want to share that we haven't talked about, or that you wanted to harp on any further, or did we cover all the important stuff?
You asked if we had like a fun reuse thing that we just do in our daily lives. I don't know if that's time to share that now.
Yeah, so we can move on to our green life hack, which is kind of your, I guess, something that you do, or that an item that you use, or just a practice that you would share with others that they could maybe implement into their lives.
My favorite, and it's so dumb. I mean, when you think about it, but we eat a lot of cereal. We eat a lot of cereal for breakfast. So I get these wax paper bags all the time that had cereal in them. And I rinse them out. I have literally never bought a box of Ziploc bags. It has never happened. And I save them and I use them. I send sandwiches. I put sandwiches in these wax paper bags to send for lunch, especially when like my kids need a disposable lunch. I save my freezer is full of wax paper bags full of leftovers. They're very sturdy. And then you just take a binder clip, which I get from ACR, and you clip the top closed and you have this perfect bag. So it's a very silly thing, but I have, like I said, I just don't buy plastic bags. I never have, and I never will. So
that's pretty ingenious, I have to say. It's one of those things, most people probably have tons of, and they just toss, or,
right.
Don't think twice about it. But that's a great way to upcycle something into something more useful. Cory, do you have something you'd like to share? Or?
Yeah, so two came to mind for me. One was inspired by the work that ACR has been doing in getting school supplies that are sent to the waste stream at the end of the school year back into circulation. We did a pilot with a couple of schools this year, supplying all of their supplies, but then I also realized that, for my own kids going back to school, obviously I need to just get everything from ACR. It's such a ritual to go through that buying new stuff, but I think it's with the next generation that we really have the ability to kind of change that mindset from the start and just start fresh with it's always better to reuse something that that still has a lot of life in it. So we had a fun time decorating old folders and notebooks with stickers so they felt new and exciting, and getting back to school without buying a single new thing. And I would say more generally that, I think a lot of times making the more sustainable choice can seem intimidating, or it often seems expensive, or they're marketed a lot of pricey products to buy this fancy reusable thing. But really the most sustainable thing that you can do is to reuse something that you own, or to buy something resale. Buying secondhand is absolutely by far the most sustainable choice that you can make. So if you're a thrift shopper for your clothes, if you're a buy a used car person, if you're any of that range of things that we buy secondhand, just recognizing that as the most sustainable choice that you can make. And I've been inspired recently to try to alter my thrift store clothing. I'm a sort of basic, competent sewer, but the skill that I've been trying to build recently is doing alterations, because I think a lot of times when we go out and we're looking for something new and we end up with something that looks a lot like what we already have in our closet, it's really just because we're sort of looking for a better fit, or we're looking for a version of what we have that's just slightly works for us a little bit better. And when we can alter what we have, or go to a good tailor instead of going to a new store, we can really prevent the consumption of a lot of unnecessary resources and reduce our footprint in a big way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely, as I've gotten more active environmentally over the last few years, I mean, I've always shopped at thrift stores, but I've been a lot more conscious about, I don't need to buy that new. I could get that not only cheaper, but just as good a shape somewhere else. So just making that concerted effort is a great idea. And on a similar note, my green life hack, since we're talking about reuse and upcycling, would just be to check your local Craigslist or Nextdoor or Facebook Marketplace pages and look for free stuff, because people are always giving perfectly usable things away, or they're selling it for very cheap. I just picked up a huge stack of Tupperware and containers to store things in the other day. Someone just posted free, and I said, I'll take them, and I have no idea what I'll do with them, but I have them, and when I go zero waste shopping now, I have more containers to put stuff in, and I also will take them to restaurants and, use those instead of asking for a plastic bag or styrofoam or something. So check out, like I said, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist have a lot of stuff, but I also noticed on Nextdoor, if you have that in your neighborhood, people will just post curb alert, or they'll just say, meet me at my house or meet me here and I'll give it to you. So great way to find free stuff too,
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, ladies, again so much for being on. Real quick, let our listeners know where they can find you online. If you would like to share your page or ACR's page again, feel free.
Yeah, we're at austincreativereuse.org. And I am also at forwardimpactfwdimpact.org and coryskuldt.com.
Awesome.
I think you can catch me at president@austincreativereuse.org.
Great. Well, and I, as always, can be found at Het's Gonna Be Me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Of course, you can find the show, Sustainably Geeky, on Facebook, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Pandora, and Spotify, and iTunes. And we do appreciate you all listening. We hope that you like the show, and if so, you'll give us a 5-star rating or subscribe to us and share us with your friends so that more folks can listen. Definitely let us know what topics you want to hear about. If you have ideas or if you are interested in being a guest on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening. And again, ladies, thanks for being on, and everyone have a good night.